Hello, this is Kelly from Root Pursuit Junk Journals, and here I am in the RV. I had a request for someone wants to know, how do you craft in an RV or a really small space like this? And I've got some really great ideas for you on how to rethink your crafting supplies, and I just wanted to give you an overview. We're going to go through what's in here, but I do have this little bucket of all of my tools and main items. So this is sort of like your minimum, and this will be that last part of the video that will go over what I have in this piece. I wanted to talk to you about intentional crafting, which I think is what needs to happen in a place like an RV or a really small space, or even if you have a really small apartment, this would probably work as well. So what I refer to as intentional crafting means you have to be very narrow and specific with what you're working on. Kind of go through like a project-based thing. So I'm only going to buy the supplies that I need for a specific project, and I'm only going to work on that one project, and then I finish it, then I can buy the items for the next project. That's totally different from how I've always crafted. And that way you can kind of really narrow it down to keeping everything small and organized and very specific. So the biggest thing with junk journaling and keeping it small is your hobby collecting craft supplies and junk journaling? So you kind of have to say, nope, I'm not going to be a collector of craft supplies. I'm just going to be a crafter. And that really is a big mindset change. But I want to have a limited and small amount in the RV to access for when I'm in my RV home, and to be able to craft on my little table here and have just a few supplies. The second thing is dealing with scraps. Now, for junk journalers, scraps are a very big thing, but I think it's pretty easy to just say, okay, either I'm not going to keep my scraps, give yourself permission to throw them away when you're done with them, or you always end your craft project that you're working on with using up your scraps. So I know there's different things that you can do at the end of every project. For instance, you could glue your scraps onto one page inside of a book. I had a book that I kept for a long time where every time I was done with my scraps, then they get glued into a page, and they'd be like a miniature masterboard that I would use for a future tag or something. Other people, they just will create like mini notebooks or mini clusters or those scrap busting projects. There is a YouTuber, and if somebody knows who it is, you could put it in the comments, but there's another YouTuber that uses up her scraps every time at the end of her crafting session. So if anybody knows who multiple ones are, just put that in the comments below. That would be super helpful. Embellishments. So I think, finding a small container like these sort of fishing boxes. I used my first box of this were like embroidery thread. Get your container and just say, that's how, this is just for my stamps, and then just say, I can't fill it any bigger than this. But you could put your brads, your eyelets, etc. in there. This is another type container. This is like actual, I think more like a lunchbox or something that it was originally, but containers like these to hold your embellishments. And if you have enough for two, great. If you only have enough for one, then make it one. Maybe you have enough for five. I don't know. Depends on how big your RV is, or your apartment, or whatever. Keep embellishments to a minimum. The next idea I have for actually RV living, and for those that want to travel with their crafts, is to use an insulated lunch bag to keep their glues and items that are sensitive to temperature changes. Or if you're crafting and camping or something like that, just like an insulated lunchbox. They also have like insulated, so it's got the little pull handle and the wheels at the bottom, and they're not that big. So maybe you want to keep all your tools in something like that. The sixth one is tools. So let's pull out the tools, and I will show you what my absolute essential tools are. And this is specifically for my junk journaling. Obviously yours are going to be slightly different, but for the most part, they're going to be the same. These are my rulers. I like to have a measuring ruler and a tearing ruler for tearing straight lines. You might have a Deckle ruler too, but that's up to you. My brown inks. So these are the ones I keep buying. You may have colored inks, but I think if I were doing, I probably wouldn't do as much stamping. Maybe stamping would get thrown out of the options, but the brown inks and a dauber, and I just have a couple of background stamps. So these are the bigger ones. They're acrylic. They're not like on blocks or anything like that. And then they just, so that I can quickly add a background with my brown ink onto something, which I really like. Of course, there's scissors. I like to have at least 2 different kinds of scissors. One is a fussy cut scissors, which I consider these, and then a longer set of scissors. I'm a big fan of the Tim Holtz because of the big round handles on both sides. I don't care for any kind of scissors that just have the small thumb hole. I'm not a fan of that. I don't care for it. But then also long straight scissors so that you can cut, you know, if you have like a 12 by 12 paper, you need to cut a straight line. That's the kind of scissor that's going to help you cut that straight line. I happen to have a little extra fussy cut scissors for fussy cutting, because you know, that's how that goes. Glues. I like to have my art glitter glue, a glue stick. So the art glitter glue is for my paper things. The glue stick is for my lightweight papers. And then I also do have my fabric glue. The fabric glue might not be all that necessary, but for me it is. If you're not going to have a lot of like fabric and embellishments on hand, but I think all of us, you don't need that much fabric and lace and ribbon and stuff. So I've got my little container of brads, sanding block for sanding paper to distress and that sort of thing. I do have a double-sided tape in there as well. Okay, I have 2. Admit it. Oh, there's a third one? Come on. That was just an accident. Let's pull out writing utensils. I have an excessive amount in here. But I do like some black fine liners, and I like to have a pen, and I've got 2 highlighters here, and I've got a brown marker in there as well. I really like the metallics, and I've got a couple metallics. This was my original choices on metallics, a silver and a gold. And then I decided to throw this one in there also. And then I've got this super cool pen. This was made for me by Vintology by Lola YouTube channel. That's Laura over at Vintology by Lola. And she made this pen for me. She attended one of my retreats also. So if you like retreats, you know. I like to have a binder clip. Yes. And a little, I like these little, they're actually like Altoid smalls containers, and then I put different things in there. This one happens to have my little fussy cut handmade numbers. So if you've got little tiny numbers, that's just how I keep those. I have a stapler. Now, honestly, I don't plan to keep this stapler in here. It's just how it happened this time. I would keep a mini stapler in here, and this one is going to go back to my craft room. So yes, definitely recommend the mini stapler. Plus they're just cuter. So there's that. I just like these little containers for little embellishments. So this has like paper clips and different kinds of clips, safety pins, bulb pins, kind of all that binding stuff. So metal pieces. And then here's another one, same situation. A fun thing that I like to have in there is some washi tape. So I always have, this washi tape is like what I consider a washi tape that I don't like very much. So it means I just want to tape something down, usually temporarily. That's the tape that I use. And then this one is a really good tape. It's like a Tim Holtz design tape. I would say like 5 to 10 washi tape is really Washi tapes are probably all you need, depending on, and then just choose them based on your style. Baker's twine, just one black and white one is probably gonna do it. Some twine, because you have to have some twine. Bookbinding stuff. So I have like this wax thread. I have this thread. So this is Cylon thread, and it's very, very tiny and very, very strong, and it's very thin. So I mean, it actually works really, really good for bookbinding. And then of course I had my needle in there. You want your needle, your thread. I have the extra thread here, and then your awl. My awl has wandered away, but that's okay. Your burnishing tool. So I have this little bowl scraper thing for a burnishing tool. You can double your ruler as your burnishing tool if you want, or just pop your little credit card in there. Easy peasy. One more washi tape. And then I do have a little, this is probably my favorite color. They call it golden brown. It looks pretty metallic-y, coppery to me, for like liquid, not liquid pearls, but you know, the little, you know. The other things I always keep in my craft are paints, and I use these little tiny tubes. Yep, that is black. Okay, so I have black, white, brown, and turquoise, and that's all I really need, and they're super small, and I can just do a little mixed media add to my journals. I keep chapstick. I think you should have chapstick in your craft supplies. I really, really do. I did find my mini stapler, so that's cool. There it is, little mini stapler, and that just about covers it. I did not show you my black ink, but you get the idea. Just a couple of inks. I have my papers, and all I have to craft with, stick with that, is basically these like little bags for in the camper so far, and they fit right in the middle of there. So I think maybe like 4 or 5 Ziploc bags of paper, and that's really it. But honestly, there's like kits online on Etsy where you can buy like a junk journal kit, and you really want to keep it small, but you really want to craft, I would do that. So for all of that, that takes up very little space, and you could still craft with that. I would stay away from like mass making. I don't think mass making is really appropriate for it, but then again, I mean, it might be. Some people, they're not really so much interested in always making a journal all the time, but they just love making the pockets and the things that go inside the journal. So maybe mass making, you just get your mass making stuff, you mass make a bunch of stuff, and then go out and buy the next grouping of mass making stuff. You can fussy cut in a camper till your heart's content. So you can really make it your own, and it doesn't have to take up a lot of space. The biggest thing is going to be really acknowledging if your crafting revolves around your other hobby of shopping for crafting supplies. So you have to be just really cognizant of that. But you can do a lot of crafting with a small amount of stuff. It can work. So these are my recommended supplies. If you have a supply that you're like, I would not be able to live without this thing, put it in the comments below. I don't want to overwhelm people, but not everybody crafts and adds to their journals the same way that I do. Like maybe you don't ink at all. So this is just sort of like a baseline to say it can be done. It can be done small with just this amount of stuff. A couple of bags of paper, a couple of containers of embellishment. So I hope this gives you some encouragement and some strategies for keeping your craft supply small. If you have any questions for me, you can send me an email at klee@root-pursuit.com. And as always, thanks for coming along, and I'll talk to you later.